The US President Donald Trump announced this week that he'll be banning flavoured e-cigarettes. There have been 6 vaping-related deaths in the US and a spike in lung illnesses linked to vaping.
Here in Australia, e-cigarettes containing nicotine are banned, but they are being used with vape liquids imported from the US. To tell us more about this, we're joined now by Emeritus Professor in Public Health, Simon Chapman from the University of Sydney. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Great pleasure.
What is vaping?
Well, vaping is heating up rather than burning a liquid which consists of nicotine, flavouring agents, and there are up to 7,000 or 8,000 of them are available, propylene glycol or vegetable glycerin, and it's heated up to a high temperature, so it vapourises that liquid and then people inhale that down into their lungs. The nicotine sort of gives them the effect that their brain is sort of saying, feed me nicotine, and the flavours make it all the more palatable. Particularly, unfortunately, as we're seeing in the United States and Canada, for young people, where there has been a huge increase in vaping amongst young people.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, we know that when kids are first starting to take alcohol, they prefer those kind of, fruit-flavoured alcopops and things like that. It's probably a little different with vaping.
Is it considered the safer alternative?
Well, we really don't know. Obviously one of the factors which would probably make it more safe is that you're not burning it. And so it's very bad to inhale smoke. Any smoke is bad for you. Tobacco smoke obviously included. So there's no smoke. So that's a tick in the way of it being less dangerous. But with the diseases caused by smoking, we didn't know what they were for sort of 20, 30, 40 years after mass consumption of manufactured cigarettes happened at the beginning of last century. There was no lung cancer reported for about 20 years after that, and then even after that it just trickled up, and then suddenly it went right up. So with vaping, we just don't know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, so now we know a lot about the dangers of normal cigarettes, but as you say, we don't know much about the health risks involved with vaping. We might bring up a graph here which sort of compares vaping rates to cigarette rates. What are we seeing here?
Well, this is from the UK, where UK and the USA are probably the two countries where we're seeing the greatest use of these products. And then you see the blue line that we're looking at on the screen. That shows from 2006 to the present what's been happening with smoking prevalence. So you can see it's been going steadily down, and that's a common pattern in countries like Australia, where we're doing all the things we're doing to drive smoking down. It's one of the big success stories in public health. The other line on the graph shows the incredible uplift in vaping, and that happened from around about the end of 2012 and continued on for a year, and then has sort of plateaued a bit. But anyone looking at that would think, well, if it was going to be a real game changer, it was going to drive a lot of people who are vaping into quitting, we would probably see the slope of that line afterwards going down far much quicker, and
yes,
it's not.
Because what we're seeing in that graph is overall more people are smoking, whether it's cigarettes or vaping. So are people actually taking up e-cigarettes, those who weren't ever smoking in the first place?
In Britain, not so much. It's people who were smoking are tending to vape and continue smoking. We call that dual using. So a majority of people who smoke in Britain also, who vape in Britain also smoke. In the United States and in Canada, we're seeing far more worrying things. We're seeing a lot of kids taking it up. Over 20% of United States high school kids are vaping, and then I'm not just talking about trying it to see what it's like, but doing it regularly. And so they're getting a brain taste for nicotine, which is, wonderful news for the tobacco companies who have all invested in vaping products now, because they're seeing their market for cigarettes in the West in particular sort of not going the way that they want.
So what, Simon, are the health problems that people have come across them and several deaths. What specifically is happening to their bodies?
Well, the Centre for Disease Control in the United States is investigating the 6 deaths. There have been something like 300 serious lung incidents where people have been admitted to hospital and have been on, sort of life support, ventilation, that sort of thing, and 6 deaths. Now, many of those people also had been using the vaping apparatus to vape street drugs, cannabis, things like that. But they were also, vaping cigarettes, vaping nicotine. So, but 20% of them, in a report that was in the New England Journal of Medicine from the states of Illinois and Wisconsin, did not report any illicit drug use. So they were apparently getting the effects from whatever was happening to them from vaping nicotine.
So obviously there are a lot of people vaping in the US, Canada and the UK, as you've been saying. What are the regulations like for it in Australia?
Well, Australia has taken what we call a precautionary approach. All state governments and the federal government and both sides of politics, Coalition and Labor, have said, look, we want to be very careful about this. We don't want to let an evil genie out of the bottle and then have a terrible time putting it back in. So at the moment, if you want to, you're not allowed to sell nicotine liquid in Australia. So if you want to get it, you have to bring it in. And so there's a lot of big trade going on in sort of importing this sort of stuff for personal use. But it's an open secret that you can go to most vaping shops and say, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, have you got any nicotine containing liquid? New South Wales Health Department have done that and found that, a large number of them are selling it.
Professor Simon Chapman, we really appreciate you coming in. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks.